was someone else because the posters on the wall, they don't look like a him at all. So he ties it up, he tucks it in, he pulls it back and gives a grin, laughing at himself because he knows he ain't loved it all. From the can and makes him feel like a man because he's loving all the ladies, but the ladies don't love him at all. Cause when he's not drunk, he's only stuck on himself, and then he has the nerve to say he needs a decent girl. Wishing she was someone else because the body of the dollar don't look like a hers at all. So she stops it, don't you think it, don't you lose it?
Oh, I'm on mute, my bad. So for some reason, when Monroe gets into this book, he has to create a language because some of these things happen so instantly. They happen super fast, right? So it's, again, it's Thursday, the 25th. We're broadcasting live here from his shack on a hill. It's getting closer to Halloween. I watched Halloween movies today, Halloween flicks while I was working. I'm getting excited. So this, let me show this key again to you guys. He's going to say these words so much that you're going to know what they mean. And then once you pick up what these words are, then you'll know. Like all these chapters will start making a hell of a lot more sense. All right. So I'll just go ahead and start into it, and then I'll show the key. Because I've been like really stressing on like how the hell am I going to do this? But these chapters are so freaking cool that, what's up, MJ, that I've got to try. All right. So this is called Surveys and Schematics. The following is a deliberately free translation of nonverbal. Remember, nonverbal communication is what they use when they get out of body because they don't really talk to each other. So they figured out how to do this kind of like telepathic nonverbal communication. All right, so to compound the rendering, most if not all represents the transposing of non-time space events and ambience into replicas of conscious human physical experience. So, thus a humanizing process is used extensively in the retelling, which may increase comprehension and simultaneously reduce accuracy. To abet the method, a few specific words are utilized in a different context to prove a connotation not so totally unlike their common definition. You can't report he said or he walked or she smiled because it doesn't really work that way. The physical equipment wasn't available. Instead, here are parts of this replica vocabulary. So if you hear Robert Monroe say TSI or time-space illusion, that's an anomaly among the standard energy systems, which includes the entire physical universe. If you hear M-band means part of energy spectrums commonly used for thought, non-electromagnetic, electrical magnetic, nucleonic, etc. M-band noise is caused by uncontrolled thought. Let me see if I can pull the slide up so I can get where you can see all of them. Because it's kind of moving on its own here. I'll see if I can pause it on. Hold on. Rolled, plied. Here we go. We'll start with this one. If you hear the word ident, that means mental name or address or energy pattern of an item. If you hear the word rote, like sometimes he'll say, run a rote and show it to me. That's like a thought ball or a packet of thought or a mentation or total memory. It also could represent knowledge or information or experience or history. And run the rote is to recall portions of the rote after the receipt of the total. In other words, once you get the download, you can just run the rote because you know it. And then let's go to the next one. These are weird. This is why it's best in audio form too, I think. Percept, if you hear him say percept, that means they just got insight or intuition or understand. Open means receptive. Like if he goes, I opened, that just means they became receptive. Closed means to tune down or out external stimuli. Flickered means uncertain. Blank means don't understand, because sometimes he'll say, I blanked, which means I don't understand. Turn in means to consider or think it over. Now here's an interesting one. Vibrate means to show emotion in this kind of different language. Smooth means get it together, in charge of self. So if he says I smoothed, that means I just got my shit together, right? Dulled means lost interest. Lighted means happy idea or enthusiasm. Rolled means amused or laughed. Curl means organized energy, usually in intelligent local slang. Implied means the way things are, goes with the territory. So if he runs into an entity and they say, I plied, that, or you understand, or you plied, that just means that's just the way things are. And so what I'm going to do is let me get back to my face here. What's up, April? So one of the earliest discoveries made in the new mode of let somebody else do the driving, and what he means by that is he's letting his unconscious or his higher self kind of do the driving as he gets out of body. And one of the earliest discoveries he made was that he said, I had more than one non-physical body. And upon return, I began to notice that it took a small additional effort to get back into the physical. Initially, I assumed this to be nothing more than some minor misalignment as I tried to re-enter. But on one particularly difficult attempt, I pulled back slightly, stopped trying, and examined the problem. My physical body appeared to be not one, but two, much as when your vision is slightly impaired by astigmatism. I said astigmatism. They seem very close together, so kind of like when you're seeing doubles when they're kind of close together. But no more than 3 or 4 inches apart, one slightly behind, fainter than the other. And I approached the nearest of the two, slowly slid into it very easily. I held this position for several moments, and it seemed as if I were partially interspersed with the physical, yet not quite in phase. The condition had a familiarity that took me all the way back to the vibration I first encountered and the physical paralysis that went with it. The sensation was near identical, without the panic, though. And from there, it was easy to re-enter the physical with a simple twitch-like movement, akin to a shrug of the shoulders. Therefore, I began to take particular notice of physical re-entry and found that I did indeed re-enter a second form just prior to the physical body. So what he's saying here is once he started letting his body, his unconscious, do the driving in the astral realm, he started noticing that he just didn't have like one etheric double. He had kind of like two etheric doubles that were slightly apart. And what he would do is before he would get into his physical body, he noticed that he would slide into one of those bodies and then kind of slide into the other and then be in the physical, that's pretty crazy, but that's kind of cool too. In appearance, it was identical to the physical, just less dense. However, upon return, the second body appeared more real, the more solid of the two. And upon entering the second, the actual physical then seemed more definite. Also, I began to observe more closely my separation process, presuming that if the premise were valid, I would be able to perceive the release from this near second body. I found it was very real. I could stay in the second body, hovering near the physical, but could move no more than 10 or 15 feet away. It was reminiscent of my first limited out-of-body activities. That's kind of what I've experienced too. So it also brought back the memory of the many frustrative attempts in those early days to move away farther. And the moment I found the release point, without being aware of the reason, I had provided subsequently to others in training the key to such release. The mental security repository box, where one can place their thoughts and get in the way. So if you've ever taken the gateway process, he talks about this repository box where you put all your troubles and stuff in there. All your problems, anything that stresses you, you just put in that box. It's an imaginative box. So once I had become aware of the actual process, it became automatic, and both separation and return contain these elements. Leaving the second body in orbit, close to the physical, moving and behind entirely apart and separate from the physical in a third body, or an energy essence without form, ? I no longer concerned myself with the details, understanding it functionally, if not the reason was enough for my purposes. So if you can imagine how crazy this is, right? Once he started realizing, like, leaving his body, that one etheric double that he was in that would only like go maybe 10 or 15 feet away from his body, he realized he has to leave that body too. So if he were to leave that body and then look back, he would probably see his actual physical body laying in bed and then a whole other etheric double just somewhere hovering around within 10 or 15 feet, maybe on the ceiling, maybe kind of, next to it, something like that. What's up, Brad? Another early result of my new navigator, or he has my total self in question marks, was remembering the going to class format. This came after my usual out-of-body separation process, releasing so much guidance and without much movement, finding myself among a crowd of gray forms. Crowd means so many they seemed to fade into the distance, and all were focused in one direction, and none seemed to notice my arrival, except one, brighter than the others. It approached me and stopped. It opened with words in my consciousness. Glad you're back, Bob. You've missed quite a few sessions. And so he's getting out of body. He's going to this place where he sees like all these like figures that are like gray people figures, and they're far as the eye can see. And one guy comes up to him that's brighter than the others and says, "Glad you're back." I flickered. "Well, I've been busy." The form focused. "Well, you're different. You haven't been on drugs or alcohol, have you?" I opened wide. "I've lost a lot of rote, or I can't pull it out. Where am I?" The form rolled. "I guess you have. You're back at Sleeper's class." I turned inward, and the percept came out bright and clear. Sleeper's classes, attended by countless humans during a portion of their deep sleep, during the sleeping out-of-body period. The only limitation was that such sleep could not be distorted by chemicals. It had to be natural. and how many times I had been here long before I knew it, before I knew anything about out-of-body experiences and the like. I just didn't remember when I woke up like everyone else. And if anything leaked through, it was attributed to a dream or an inspiration or an idea or imagination. So what he's saying here is that he's been going to these like classes that we might be going to and we don't even know it, where all the sleepers go to learn shit, I guess, about consciousness or whatever. And then when we wake up, we don't even know that we're in class or we're being taught stuff. This is just a really trippy thought. And I knew my instructor. I remembered him. Hi, Bill. Bill rolled. Took you long enough. Want me to plug you in? I flickered. Well, I don't know, you see. I think I am different. I'm not asleep. Bill blanked slightly, then lighted. Hold on just a second. Oh, you're one of those. How did that happen? One of those meaning an astral traveler. I applied. I don't know. It just did. Bill turned inward, then opened. That means you don't belong here anymore. Too bad. You're one of my star pupils. I flickered. You're sure about that? About my not belonging? Bill smoothed. I've had them before. It doesn't work out. Your type gets impatient and bored. The biz kids, the out-of-bodyers, the busy. I smoothed carefully. How about plugging me in one last time, as long as I'm here? Bill doled. You probably know it already. Can't change the program. I opened wide. Try me. Bill flickered and tossed me a rote, and I opened it easily. Click. All right, so here's some of that. Let me run this. I just unplugged something, so let me run this again so you can. This will make more sense. Because he's using words that don't make sense here. So remember, he's using all these words, and that's what they mean. 1 second. Yeah, I unplugged the damn monitor. Whoops. So there's so like he just said, click, right? Run the road, click, an instantaneous change in consciousness. That's what that means. Okay. The anti-ulcer, anxiety lowering, tension reduction, get it together formula. The major underlying cause, this is so freaking important right here. The major underlying cause of human worry. I'm going to turn this off so we can get down to business here. The major underlying cause of human worry relates to the law of change. All human conflict relates to this law. Some worry that change will take place, others that it will not. Wars are fought to resist change or accelerate it. At the individual level, this translates into various forms of indecision. Fear enters into the pattern. Fear of the consequences of any decision or action. The pressure builds up, intensifies. Think of every toxic moment you've ever had in your life. Think about this. Fear enters into the pattern. Fear of the consequences of the change of any decision or action. The pressure builds up, intensifies as the decision is put off or delayed. The result accumulates toxins in all parts of the human system until there is failure, even severe reduction in operating efficiency. Indecision is a toxic killer. Consider the statistics of decision, in general and simplified. In any abstract decision, there is a 50% probability that the correct or constructive choice will be made. If the correct path is taken, obviously no problems will exist. If the incorrect selection is made, it will become evident. When it does, there's a 50% probability that the choice can be reversed and the constructive path substituted in its place. Therefore, there is only one chance in 4, at the most, that an irrevocable direction may be taken in decision-making. So all vital decisions in the history of man have been made on much worse odds than 3 to 1. Some were as high as 1 in 20 and came out positively. So to move away from the null point of indecision, take the position that any action or decision, okay, is better than none at all, based upon the odds of 3-1. So to get the process underway without trauma, perform the following. So I'll try to explain this a little simpler before I go into his formula here. And remember, he just went to the sleepers class. This guy gave him a rote or a program, and he said click, which means he changed his consciousness, and this is downloading into him right now while he's out of body. So what he's saying is just about everything in life, there's a time of change. So everything's always changing, or there's always decisions that need to be made. Most people don't like change. Some do, some don't. You can think of like when presidents are about to run against each other. There's a whole lot of people that wants things to stay the same. There's a whole lot of people that want change. And before that decision is made, a whole lot of toxic shit happens. And it's the same thing in your life. You come to a stressful point where you have to make a decision. The longer it takes for you to make a decision, the more toxic and shittier it gets. Same things with relationships, all that stuff. So what he's saying is people don't make the decisions because they're afraid that they're going to make the wrong choice. But it's more dangerous not to make a choice at all, for one reason, because of the toxicity of the indecision, and two, only 1 in 4 at most times, when even if you make a wrong decision, you can still correct it. So what he's talking about here is energy. The energy needs to flow. Time needs to keep going. Life needs to keep going. Energy needs to keep moving. So when you come to indecision in your life and you don't make decisions, toxicity builds up, depression, anxiety, health issues, bad relationships, violence, all kinds of things. If you just make the decision, and let's say you hit the 1 in 4, the half that you were wrong, most of the time you can fix it. You can just make another decision or go back and make the right one. But don't not make the decision, all right? That's what he's saying. All right, so to get the process underway, this is the get your consciousness and your shit together formula. Make up an A list. Placed on this list all of your worries, anxieties, and concerns about which you can do absolutely nothing. You cannot do anything about tomorrow's weather conditions. It will rain, snow, be cold or hot, and there's no action you can take to prevent it. If there's absolutely nothing you can do today about such items, place them in an A list. Make up a B list. Place on this list all of your worries, anxieties, and concerns about which you can do something today. Take action, large or small, on this. Make up a C list. Place on this list all of your needs, hopes, desires, large or small, which have yet to be fulfilled. Perform the following functions today. Take the A list and destroy it, and in so doing, dismiss all items contained therein from your consciousness. Don't waste your time and energy worrying about stuff you cannot control. 2. Take the B list and take some action, however small, to begin the resolution of each item contained therein. Several may be concluded immediately and thus can be released and dismissed from your consciousness. Others will be reduced in pressure because the flow has begun. A decision has been made. And 3, take at least one item on the C list and perform one act, large or small, that moves you in the direction of that bigger goal. Now perform this entire process each day until you have no A list, no B list, and all of your energy and consciousness are devoted to items on your C list. You then will complete serenely your human life purpose. Click. I folded the rote and tucked it in me. Turned to Bill. That's pretty good. That seems familiar. Bill replied, It ought to. You must have picked it up a couple hundred classes back. I opened. Bill, if I don't belong here, where do I go? I don't know. I don't have the slightest percept on that. There must be classes for mavericks like me. Bill replied, I'm sure there are. I got to go make my rounds now. Drop in for a visit if you like. I'm 2 rings out. I opened wide. Sure, Bill. He turned and faded into the host of gray forms, and with nothing better to pull me, I rotated and dived back to the physical body. Re-entry was normal. The next early absorption was a series of demonstrations, live guided experiences of the old saw about fools and angels. I cannot conceive of the latter having fear, just selective. As to the former, I had ignorantly rushed in many times in the early period, so I certainly qualified. I began to call it the defooling treatment. The presumption I made was that my greater self, or soul, in question mark, always knew what it was doing. I had learned from it how a homing device, loosely called an ident, was utilized. This was like a signal you could follow to the source of that place or being. In this one instance of defooling, I had rolled out of body in the early morning, and after releasing the second, I expressed the mild observation that it would be nice to visit a near-human culture that was in time-space, and then I could understand. Immediately, the ident Z55 flashed into me, so I reached and stretched. There was a slight sense of movement, and I was in front of a slightly glowing figure. Other similar figures were in the background, beyond nothing. The figure opened. "Well, Robert, we meet again." I flickered. Yeah. Still digging out the secrets of the universe? This wasn't what I expected. It definitely wasn't any near-human culture, and this being seemed to know me. Some mistake in the ident, but the radiation did seem familiar. I didn't want to ask the obvious, but I had to. "Where am I?" The figure smoothed. "Well, you're in the outermost ring, Robert. One more final cycle in human life, and that will be it for me." I flickered. "I don't have a percept on the Z55 ident, but I know you." Z55 rolled. After all those hours putting music together, the run to Cuba back in the 50s to record in Havana, the percept came bright and sure in me. Of course I knew him. Even then I called him an old soul. I vibrated strongly. "Lou, sure." The Z50 ident threw me. "You seem different. It's great to be with you again." Z55, or Lou, smoothed. "Well, I've had a couple more inhuman runs since we were together, so Lou is sort of covered over a little." I turned inward. Lou, one of the most gentle of persons I had ever met, a musician, an arranger, orchestra conductor, quietly living through his life and his work. Hours and days we spent together, working far into the night, developing melody lines, chord progressions, orchestrations. Then our paths diverged, and I heard of his early death, the diabetes I knew he lived with. Z55 Lou opened. "You're still inhuman?" I smoothed. "Yep." In other words, he's saying, "You're still in human form?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm still here." He flickered. "Oh, you're a sleeper. You got out for this far? That's pretty good. Too bad you won't remember it." I opened more. "It's not quite that way, Lou. Here." I tossed him a short rope covering the out-of-body experience beginning. He took it in and closed. Then he opened and rolled lightly. "Oh, you're one of those. You never told me." I plied. I didn't know myself when we were working together. And he flickered. "So how do I fit in? You coming looking for me, more music?" I plied again. "I'm not sure. I asked to visit a near-human culture, and I got your ident, and here I am." Z55 Lou lighted. "You want to visit my hometown, so to speak?" I rolled. "Not Kentucky. I've been there. It's too human." He rolled with me. No. My original home. It's just what you want. That's why you got my ident. It's different, but you can understand it all right." I turned inward. If you've never been to a particular exotic place, or to a locale that at least to you seems exotic and exciting from your distant viewpoint, there is much anticipation. You can conjure up any number of possibilities as to what you will do and experience. In your eagerness, you're willing to accept all sorts of limitations, restrictions, that seem unimportant from the outside. Also, you forget one of the most important factors. You take along as hidden extra baggage your own enculturation as a comparative tool of measurement. In other words, you take your own paradigm of your culture as a comparative tool to measure against someone else's, hometown or reality or whatever. So Z55 Lou lighted brightly. To really get the feel of it, you ought to go there just like a regular tourist. Limited amount of assets, and stay through the regular historical event they call the Surge. I lighted too. Great. Good percept. And so you can truly experience this, he went on, cut off communication with here until after the surge, a little like the inhuman training but without rote erasure. I opened wide. I'm all for it. How do we start? Well, I'll be your anchor here, and to get back, all you need to do is home on my ident. There was a whimsical radiation mixed in with this pattern. To get there, focus in on ident Zir surge. So I vibrated Zir surge. I reached and stretched and click. So he just changed consciousness again. So this is how weird that all this is, right? So he leaves his body, finds an old instructor that used to teach him about getting out of body in this kind of dream class, realized that he's not dreaming anymore. He's not dead, so he's out of body. So his dream instructor then gives him a rote, and he reads the rote. The rote tells him about how to fulfill his life purpose. He leaves that, decides that he wants to go to some more of like an inhuman type place, I guess, more, not exactly human, but close to human. And then he meets this guy who he forgets about, but then remembers he's had past lives with him before. But this guy's not human anymore, and he's still human. And now this guy's wanting to take him to his exotic hometown that he calls the Surge. And so when he says click right here, that means he just switched consciousness again. I guess he moved to this hometown or place. I was in a city, or what appeared to be a city. There were buildings in all directions, fairly uniform. None over 3 or 4 stories high. They were not particularly attractive or unusual, had openings in the sides that my percept took as windows and doors. The streets or spaces between buildings were not usually wide, but contained only people, percept beings like me or what I was temporarily. No cars, trucks, vehicles of any type. No utility poles or overhead wires, no sidewalks. It was bright daylight, but I couldn't find a sun overhead. As I walked and mingled with the population, people noticed me, but didn't seem to react as if I were an alien. And with each step, I felt more at ease, and the population seemed more human. Each inhabitant was very purposeful and closed, as if preoccupied on a job to be done, with not much nonsense in the process. If there was any body language present, no percept showed. Point of fact was, I couldn't tell the males from the females, which was unusual for me. So I assumed there was no such difference. Unable to attract the attention of those moving on the street, I entered one of the buildings and found myself in a large room which greatly resembled the lobby of a medium-sized hotel. There were people standing around, apparently in conversation. I approached a man, who appeared to be standing behind a desk. He looked at me expectantly. I knew I needed a reason. Do you have a restaurant here? I tried to make it casual, but as he blanked, I knew I had done it wrong. I turned to my rudimentary NVC, which is nonverbal communication. Do you have the means for me to recharge? The man lighted brightly, waved me off to the right. As I walked in the indicated direction, I felt smug. I had passed one test, but they didn't vocalize, but they understood me. Even my weak, nonverbal communication. And from here on, it wouldn't be easy. I began to speculate as to the food they consumed. It was sure to be unusual. An archway rounded was in front of me, and it appeared dark beyond, no, not dark, but just lit differently in a mixture of colors. I strode confidently through the archway and into the colors, and just inside, the radiation hit me like a sheet of hot flame, and I staggered back. This wasn't the restaurant. The man got it all wrong. And from all sides came the overwhelming attraction of female sexuality, inviting, asking, offering, promising. It was too much. With great effort, I backed out through the archway, breathing heavily and trying to calm down. I had just about smoothed out when I looked up, and the room clerk, was in front of me, accompanied by 2 other men, percept police, authority, KGB, etc. One of these KGB moved in. Your ident, please? I began fumbling in my pockets for my wallet, and only there was no pockets in one piece cover I was wearing. But there was a belt on me with a small pouch attached to it. And I reached in the pouch, and there was a card in it. I pulled it out, and it resembled nothing so much as a typical credit card. The KGB took it from me, examined it carefully, then looked up. Now, you're from Earth, huh? Never heard of that city. Over on the other side of the ocean? I smoothed. Why, yeah, sure. You see, and then the KGB waved the card at me. Well, we don't particularly like you visiting here, but you got to obey the rules. I brightened. Sure, I understand. Here, we don't go into private space and take without paying first. Always pay first. And the KGB turned to the desk clerk, handing him my card. Well, how much of it do you want? He hasn't got very much. The desk clerk dropped the card into the pouch on his belt. Oh, that ought to about cover it. I started to protest, but that's all I got. I can't. And in that case, we'll have to flag you. The second KGB stepped forward and took my hands. Can't have you walking around upsetting things without any ident. I flickered. What are you going to do? The second KGB pulled a small flat box out of his pouch and opened it. Hold still. This won't hurt. He took one hand and pressed my fingertips into the box. I thought, fingerprints? They're taking my fingerprints? But I was wrong. A black dye spread quickly up my fingers until it covered my entire hand. And as I stared at it, bewildered, they stuck the fingers of my other hand into the box, and I had two black hands. I tried to rub it off, but it had penetrated the skin. The first KGB looked at my hand, satisfied. That ought to do it. At least the people will see you coming. And be warned, the second KGB added. I'll advise you to go back home. Not much action for you here, the way you are. No ident to play with. The first KGB looked at me hard. We'll be keeping an eye on you. Then the two turned and walked across the room and out into the street. I smoothed at the desk clerk. Sorry, I didn't know it was a private space. The desk clerk vibrated. What other kind is there? I flickered. You mean all of these buildings are private? The desk clerk dulled. Then what are all these people doing here? There must be 100. I hit it strong enough to catch his attention. It's their private space, naturally. All 100? The desk clerk waved me over to the desk and I followed. He pointed to the drawing on the wall behind him. It showed some 5 rows of large black dots that looked like holes, 20 in it to a row. That's our personal space, he gestured proudly. Best in the city. I stared at the drawing. You got into those? He nodded. Only when the surge takes place, there's this big across the middle. They're this big across the middle. He indicated a width of about 2 feet with his arms. He was about to continue when there was a sound like thunder in the distance and the floor began to rock. Immediately, everyone in the room turned and hurried out through the exits in the back. The room clerk ran to join them. That's the surge starting up, he called over his shoulder. I suppose that's what you came to witness, but you better get to your personal space fast. Then the room was empty, and I tried to keep my footing as the floor heaved rhythmically. I staggered over to the entrance as the roar grew louder. And in the distance and approaching fast was a mighty wave, not water, but in the ground itself, lifting buildings and streets into a tumbling flotsam hundreds of feet high. Or a tumbling flotsam hundreds of feet high. Behind the first wave, I could see a second and a third wave, each larger than the first. There may have been more, but I didn't have a chance to find out as the first wave came surging into where I was, and the building lifted and tumbled me in it, bouncing, rolling, twisting, jarring. Desperately, I tried to focus. Ident what? Ident Z55 Lou. Z55 Lou. Reach and stretch. Reach and stretch. Close tightly. Tightly. Click. So he just changed consciousness again. So, let's see. Who's in here with me? Bryce, are you in here? Did you hear all that shit or some of that shit? Have you read this part? So this is really freaking strange, man. So he goes to this place, like, after he talks to Lou, or this guy that he has had past life with or whatever, he just lets loose in the city, and he goes to this place, and they're all talking about, like, the surge or whatever. He goes into this building, 2 of these guys, and he puts guys in question marks because he says they don't look like humans at all, right? And they turned his hands black and said because he had no identifications, so, and he didn't have any private space to go to. This is weird, right? And the surge came with these waves, and they were telling him, you better get to your private space, which, those are like holes in the wall or something? Like, this is almost too trippy, you know? I don't know. It doesn't say. It just says that when he went to this place, that everybody went there, like a lot of people went there to witness this surge. And when I say people, I'm talking about, I don't think these are, I don't know if they're human or they're conscious entities or if it's, I don't know. But they're definitely not human. He calls them KGB in here because that's what they remind him of. Because he goes, are they police? Like percept police, right? Percept meaning police that need to identify beings, you know. And when they approached him, they made him pay something off of this card, which I have no idea what that currency was. And then they marked both of his hands and they said, that way everybody can see you coming. You can't walk around this part without some kind of ident. And all of these people paid for their private space, and they go into these private places when this surge comes. I don't know. He doesn't say. I don't know. And see, that's the thing. That's what's weird about this. He'll go, like when he says click, he'll change consciously and he'll go into these places and he kind of knows what's going on and he'll start recognizing things like his buddy Lou or whatever. But there's just so much shit going on that it's hard to know the truth of the details of everything. So imagine like quantum leaping into different realities where lots of stuff don't make sense. And I think that's why he made this like language, this key like click and percept and M-band noise, and because he says it's too hard to explain. It's confusing, man. I mean, I'm not confused because I'm not confused. You can't hear Bryce. Damn, man, I keep having audio issues. I'm not confused because I can't hear anything. I mean, I've read it so many times. I can understand what the hell's going on, you know? And like, I can understand what's going on to a certain point, but, you know, there's just things that aren't explainable. Like the card you're talking about, Bryce.
Yeah, okay. So it's not just me that's lost there. That's
no,
good.
Like he doesn't. He goes to these places and he doesn't explain every little thing. That's what's weird about it. It's almost like imagine quantum leaping. Okay, so you start getting out of body, and then you start getting bored with getting out of body, and then you start letting your higher consciousness or your unconscious guide you into places. And now you're like quantum leaping into God knows whether it's different timelines, other realities, wherever he decides he wants to go, his consciousness is just taking him to these places, you know?
Yeah. Huh. I'm just, yeah, okay. So he's like kind of going from body to body, or I don't know.
Yeah, so he's not going from body to body. He's figured out how to separate into even a third realm. He talked about that earlier, where he realized that he had a second and a third body, almost like an accordion of bodies, keeping him close to his body. So he had his physical body, his etheric double, and even a third body that was really close to his etheric double. And he had to get into that third body in order to let his consciousness start traveling. Now, this is just where he's at now. All this shit could change later, though. You know?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
so
it's it's like sci-fi, but not sci-fi. I mean, he's saying that all this stuff really happened, but it's the weirdest, most like sci-fi thing ever. You know. Can y'all heard Bryce now, didn't you? Somebody tell me you heard him, because I've been having audio issues all week. What's up, J Moo? All right. That's why I said, dude, they need to make a movie out of this. If they made a movie out of this, people would understand it way more. But I kind of get it. So, All right, so as he's running from the surge or he's trying to get out of there, he's thinking in his head, Z55 Lou, Z55 Lou, so he can leave, so he can escape. So he reaches and stretches, reach and stretch, he closed tightly, then click. So click means I change consciousness again. And I'm pretty sure it sent him where he needed to go. What's up, Dragon Rose? It was quiet, and the pounding had stopped. I tried to keep from shaking long enough to open, and I finally made it. I was in front of Z55 Lou, and I got a percept of his polite expectation. I smoothed somewhat. That's home for you? Where were you before starting human? He plied. Well, it's not Kentucky. And you're going back there? Z55 Lou opened wide. He glowed very brightly, almost white. No, not there. There was a sudden, urgent signal to go back, and before I could reply, I moved away automatically, and he faded. I was back hovering over the physical body. The return signal was still strong. I slid into the second, then the physical, and then sat up on the waterbed. My body was fine, no full bladder, no signal. Well, what called me back? Nothing I could find. The defooling treatment. They do rush in. Releasing to my total self for direction and purpose provided what I now recognize as a crash program and comprehension of what I had formerly labeled Locale 2. It began with hard basics at the inner end of the spectrum, with a modified hands-on process that forced inescapable conclusions. Simply put, I could observe but not participate. The purpose, I discovered, was multifaceted and determined in the part long after the event itself. One of the principal examples came one night when I rolled out of the physical body, and before I could release from the second body, an overwhelming drive for sexual union rose in me. I was about to employ my usual not now but later cooling technique when I moved away sharply with a sudden shift. The movement was fast and short, and when I was able to perceive, I found I was standing a few feet away from an enormous... Oh, this is trippy right here. I found I was standing a few feet away from an enormous pile of writhing forms. It reached up, slanting back as high as I could see, in each direction, right and left. It swept off into the distance. It reminded me of nothing so much as the interweaving of huge fishing worms in the bottom of a can after being left there overnight. The motion was continuous. Thousands upon thousands, each wet, slippery forms wiggling in and out among the others in a pile, searching, trying to do something, but never achieving satisfaction. 3 perceptive shocks hit me simultaneously, and the forms were not worms, they were human. And second, the incredible, staggering radiation of sexuality, both male and female, that emanated from the seething mass. Third, they're all physically dead. I wanted to turn and run, but some other part of me held me in place. I finally calmed down enough to become analytical. Did I want to join in? My whole being shuddered in rejection. No vestige I remained of that sexual drive I found so important moments before. So, all that sexual urge he was feeling before after he seen that sliming parasite of sexual humans all mangled together like worms, now he's not thinking about it at all. I had the strong precept that it would come again, but never where it would control wholly what I thought or did. And with this flash of knowing, another emotion washed through me. Intense compassion for those trapped in this undulating mass, so focused and an intent on seeking sexual satisfaction they were unaware of any other existence. Anger at a system that could so inhibit, repress, and distort as to create the situation that's in front of me. So he's getting mad about this situation. Were these the cast-offs of the human process to remain so throughout eternity? I moved forward slowly and stopped close to the edge of the pile. The moving bodies were male and female, of all shapes and sizes, glistening with wetness. A bare, hairy leg thrust momentarily from the pile, and I grabbed it by the foot and pulled. The leg pushed out blindly, trying to move more deeply back into the pulsating mass. I pulled harder, trying to keep my grip on the sweat-covered ankle. But slowly, I was able to pull the rest of the body clear of the pile. It was a man, small in stature, dark-haired, fine-featured, of intermittent age. He laid there on his belly and his arms and legs moving crab-like, attempting to pull himself back into the pile, totally oblivious to the fact that I was holding onto his foot and preventing him from doing so. I easily held him in place, bent over, and shouted in his ear, "Hey, I want to talk to you. Hold still for a moment." There was not the slightest indication that he heard me. His face was fixed. A gleam of anticipation spread across it. He kept trying to move back, and I held him in place, wondering what to do next. I tried another approach. "Hey, man, it's the cops, the police. They're raiding the joint. Gotta get out." I waited for some response, but there was none. I couldn't provide him with the radiation that would get his attention, so I released his foot, and he crawled back into that mass and was swallowed up in the movement. I turned away sadly and stretched for my physical ident and returned without incident. And from that point on, I had a new technique to control any surfacing sexual drive. All I need to do is think of that wriggling, writhing, mindless pile of humanity. That does it. This episode was of the milder variety that may be encountered in the immediate post-physical areas. I soon discovered that there was a pattern at work in my own guided tour through them, states of being I had previously passed through quickly to avoid confrontation. All of these forays started while in the second body, and before I could release it and move outward. I felt safe and secure with my higher self doing the driving. The feeling was right, but not the reason. Okay. Did anybody just comprehend that? Well, for you in here now, you're in here, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Holy shit, man. Think about if that's real, if what he's saying, let's say he's not making any of this up. He got out his physical body and he found a pile of people that were dead that were so obsessed on sexual energy. They were all mangled together like worms, dude, in this thing. And he not only that, he got angry at this thing. So angry, he grabbed someone and tried to save them, pulled them out of the pile. And it was so fixated on the sexual energy, it was just crawling back to this thing, this like, whatever the hell it was. That's some trippy shit, man.
That's almost like something out of Divine Comedy.
That's what it sounds like, a piece of hell, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know what? I mean, if there's 8 billion people on the planet and 4 billion are asleep, how many are having sexual kind of dreams? Because it's a sort of powerful emotion for humans. So that mass could be the astral bodies of those asleep, or it could be the kind of thought forms created out of the whole of mankind throughout a kind of a collective conscious thing. Do you know what I mean? But who knows?
I don't know, dude. So when I say, hey, you know, when you take humans' libido away, they stop doing things. They just stop, right? So I know that it's a part of the whole reason why our energy moves. It's the poles between the two magnets. Hell, the Egyptians knew it. That's why they had, you know, phalluses and all these symbols and stuff everywhere. But it's almost like you either understand it and don't let it control you, or you let it unconsciously control you. And what if you end up in that pile of shit of writhing? Like, what if, I don't know, dude. That can't be real. If that's real, that's freaking scary. I'm just telling you. I'm not scared of much, but that's scary.
It's like a kind of lower astral form, a kind of low energy, negative kind of astral form, isn't it?
Yeah. And see, what he's just realizing is that, you know, this is low-cal too. I usually just go right through this place most of the time. But now that I'm in here, I'm seeing all this crazy shit like this thing. I know I'm cursing a lot, but that freaks me out. I don't want to see that. Like, if I get out of body, I don't want to see that. I don't like, you know, the whole first book, he said he would get overcome with sexual energy, and what he would do to overcome it is tell these like feminine forms or whatever, yeah, we'll do it later. And then he'd move on. But now, because he's had this experience, he don't have to do that anymore. All he has to do is think about this thing, you know, and it scares him or pisses him off.
You know, maybe his mind even created that just for that very purpose, so that he could control those urges.
I hope his mind created it, man. I hope that's not real. But But you have to remember, he did slip out of his etheric. He did get into like his quote kind of third body or whatever. So on some level, it's real. Even if he did create it, or even if I don't think he created it. I think it's a perception of energy. Like, I think the energy is real, but his mind created the form, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
That's what makes sense to me. I have to believe that, because if it's like real, like Bryce is saying, then it's like Dante's Inferno. It's hell. That's a piece of hell.
For sure.
What would you guys have done? Before I move on, if you would have seen that thing, would you have tried to save? I mean, he did have compassion. He was angry that humans were caught in it. Right?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have grabbed a man's leg, that's for sure.
Wouldn't have tried to save anybody from that thing, from that pile?
I don't know.
He didn't even know it was a dude. He said he just grabbed a foot. You know?
Yeah, hairy leg he grabbed.
That's great. All right. Let's see where else this stuff takes him. That's why this book is called Far Journeys. All right, so the next one's called Contact Point. Oh, shoot, it's already after 10. Okay. The suspicion began where I thought I had a good perspective of the human experience. But in retrospect, the whole thing may have been planned that way all along. I had been moving in and out of body situations very blithely and calmly. What does blithely mean? Do you guys know what that means? It's not calmly. B-L-I-T-H-E-L-Y. Anyways, I'd been moving in and out of body very blithely and calmly, always sure that my guiding total self knew the answers, would take care of anything and any problem as they arose. It had worked perfectly to date, and perhaps that was why the slight scent of suspicion began to form. However great my ego might think I was, I knew I wasn't that good. Thus entered again one of my many questionable characteristics. I can't let a good thing alone and simply let it do. I have to find out why. Me too, I'm like that. I get that. And in several succeeding out-of-body excursions, I tried to become aware of who was doing the driving and or navigating. The contact was elusive in the beginning, no percept other than a gentle presence behind me, directing where I went. I turned around, but there was nothing. At the most, a trace of friendly presence, but it was there and it seemed definitely external. I went back through my notes all the way to the beginning, and I was astounded that I had ignored what was so apparent. A hand helping me get out, a hand on my arm, a response to my anguished screams, and the more subtle clues apparent from my new perspective. I had called them helpers at the time and let it go at that. But at the minimum, I had not turned my activities over to my greater self, but to them, whoever they were. Thereafter, during active out-of-body experiences, I tried many times to communicate with these presences, singular or plural, to no avail. Correction. I thought I received no reply because no words were forthcoming, only pictures, sensations, and action. But the change came about when I dimly began to realize I wasn't speaking their, quote, language, as it were. Review of my early notes supported this for the most part. Words and language, as we know them, are strictly human. The inference was obvious to me, being human. My deflated ego rose somewhat with the realization that whatever my communication method was, a response was coming from these non-humans, ? And with this awareness, I continue to ask and let them do the driving and navigate during my out-of-body states for one simple reason. The process had been working. Whoever they were, they certainly knew the territory far better than I, and each time, though I attempted another kind of communication, it began getting results. I directed wordless thought pictures, activities, feelings, and emotions to the supposed presence behind me, and each time, there was an immediate response of like quality. It took some analytical and subjective attitudes combined to comprehend what I received. It was painfully slow on my side, astoundingly patient on theirs. Out of it came the rudiments of what we now call nonverbal communication, or NVC. It was a milestone in my consciousness, I knew then that nonverbal communication exists, and I knew the difference. Not too much more. And with the mutual recognition of such communication, the depth and extent of my out-of-body pattern shifted. I was escorted frequently to what might be loosely described as another kind of class, and that there was an instructor, and there were students, including me. It was entirely different from the sleepers' classes I remembered. Here, freely translated, there was a brilliant white radiating ball of light that was the teacher. I could detect radiation of others, presumed students, all around me, but nothing beyond that, no form or any indicators as to who and what the others were. Instruction consisted of a seeming sequential bombardment of packages of total experiential information to be absorbed instantly and stored through balls, whose actual name cannot be translated into a word, which I now call rotes. So these are like downloads, I guess. But what I could bring back, I attempted to convert into human usage with mixed results. I've been able to relate the vast majority of such information in any way to life here on time, space, Earth. It may be preparation for activity yet to take place here, for use in other non-physical energy systems, or it's beyond my comprehension. But the last is most likely. Thus the relationship took on an entirely new aspect. I began to trust my unseen pilots, as I never would have trusted myself. For example, in flying as a passenger on a commercial airliner, I never can trust completely the air crew up front. Perhaps I know too much. However, I have to get from here to there physically in a short time, so I fasten the seatbelt and fly the airplane with nothing but anxiety and muscle twitches, and sleep is unthinkable. But this was different. They knew how and where to fly this airplane over this route far better than I, and with each, quote, flight, my confidence and trust grew in them. Conversely, I realized how little I knew as the route became more complicated. I fondly began to call them inspecs, short for intelligent species, which presumes humans are not quite so. Knowing of such assistance and help, I approached my visits into the cycling rings and near-Earth environs with much more confidence and consciousness than before. I felt an absolute security, and if I got in beyond my depth, they would pull me out to safety, although I found that their concept of beyond my depth and mine differed somewhat. I may have believed that I was going down for the third and last time screaming for help, yet they waited until the 8th or 9th time before they calmly extended a hand. All part of a learning process with built-in intensity. A favorite quick and learn forever method of theirs was simulation. It was based on their ability to create and place into a human consciousness, mine, an Earth-type situation so real and so overwhelming that I could not tell reality from illusion. I don't know the limits of such simulation talent or technology, and nor do I know the extent to which they employ the technique. It may be only in my own particular case, but I doubt it. The potentials of its application in other ways begs for broad speculation. In my own pattern, it was usually applied as an instant cleanup of minor emotional patterns that blocked or distorted my clarity of perception or my stability. Usually I was unaware of such dysfunction. They would note it and offer to take care of the problem. I would be informed that the lesson was about to take place with my consent, yet once into the simulation, it began absolutely and totally real, and I lived it. Most of them were short, single events that were the park decision-making points under very adverse circumstances. The vital part, the lesson to be learned indelibly, was my constructive and reasoned resolution of the problem. If I did not come up with the desired action, the simulation would be repeated until I did. And even in the repetition, I couldn't break through the reality of the simulation. Yet once the training sequence was completed, I then knew it for what it was. Oh man. So I don't want to get too far into this before we have a little discussion here. So basically what he's saying is at some point he let like his higher self or these helpers or his unconscious take the wheel and control of his out-of-body experiences, if I'm understanding this correctly. These helpers would put him in situations and scenarios that were super real. He didn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. And he would get in situations like he did in book 1, where he would go through things to the point of exhaustion and desperation, like that one time when he was screaming for help and they finally came around and helped him. But that's also the higher self or their way of teaching him through these intense kind of simulations. I don't know about you guys, but I find this a little bit counterintuitive. Like, he's still talking as if he trusts this higher self showing him these things. But based on some of the stuff we just read and that we've been through, man, like, I don't know if I would trust him, because some of the shit sounds scary. Would you guys trust it? Like, I would feel like, you know what? I had a good time being a ghost back in, just being a ghost when everybody was asleep. Let's go back to that. Because he's already faced like 3 crazy fights. One time when he got trapped behind a wall. Some of this was in book 1. Another time when these beings were like locked onto him. Another thing where he could have been kidnapped by some serpent that was crawling over people's bellies. And also now he's like running into these giant sex parasitic worms of people. And he's still talking about like these higher beings as if they're, I guess, showing him something. Am I wrong here? Like, to me, I would be not as trusting. I'd be like, what the hell are you guys doing to me? Don't you think, Wolf? Bryce?
Are they all tests? Are they all tests though?
I guess that's what it sounds like that's kind of what he's saying, right? Like, they're tests and he's trusting the process or something. But he's not really in control like he was before. Like in book 1, when he was getting out of body, he was in control of most of everything, like you do when you separate from the body and you got that heavy feeling and then you try to move away from your body. Like, you're in total control. In this state, he's letting them or they or the helpers or whoever the hell they are like do all this stuff. And my point is so far it's been pretty hellish. I mean, it's not all been hellish, but if I would have had 2 or 3 or 4 experiences like that, I would just be like, I'd start to question things, not just trust whatever the hell's guiding me, What you think, Wolf?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'd definitely be wary of it, unless there's some overriding sense of it's the correct thing to do. But I'd be wary of all of that, Maybe it's some sort of lesson or something, but maybe he just doesn't explain it properly. I mean, there's a lot of writing here. I mean, he has to sort of come back from this experience and then write it out. So is any of it a little bit of poetic license or a little bit kind of lost in translation? You wonder that as well.
I think he said that earlier. He said there are just some things that I cannot convey. That's kind of why he created this other language of words, because there's just some things I cannot convey in human language or form or whatever,
Yeah.
But this last part where he just said, I couldn't break through. So they would put him through these simulations and he'd said, I can't break through the reality of these simulations. Yet once the training sequence was completed, I then actually knew it for what it was. It's almost, sounds like life to me, when you keep going through shit, right? And you've suffered so much that you've learned the lesson, kind of thing, right? Like, that's what it sounds like to me. I could be, like projecting onto it a little bit, but.
Yeah, he doesn't really say to what end, does he? But maybe he does later on. But yeah, I agree with you.
An interesting sidelight arose when our laboratory explorers met and associated with intelligent beings who did accommodate to the use of words, some of whom closely resembled my percepts of the inspecs. Further, they greeted me with familiarity, and I felt the same towards them. I'd never asked the inspecs exactly what their role was in the human Earth pattern. I just assumed they were simply a graduate school version of the ex-human helpers from the outer rings. And you see, he hasn't even talked about the rings of conscious, like these rings he keeps bringing up. Their modes of operation and purpose seemed very similar, except that the inspecs had knowledge and technology far beyond that drawn from the human experience. The fact that they seemed to be independent of the recycling rings supported this belief. To pose questions about motive seemed irreverent, or perhaps I didn't want to endanger the good thing I had going for me. Thus, I had no direct and conscious communication with them while in the out-of-body state. But we fools can't let it alone. On a particular night, I had an idea, and I decided to try it out. I had been developing a sense of familiarity with the radiation of the inspecs, and I thought I could home in on the signal, or the ident, just as I could others. I might learn much. Here's the event, as taken from my notes and expanded to a semblance of understanding. Time, 2:17 a.m. Bedroom. After 2 sleep cycles, awake, rested, and relaxed, I went through unhook rollout method into second body, rolled out of the second, and this time I did have a percept of the ident inspec. Not much, but enough, I thought. Homing on the ident, went through normal reach and stretch procedure, moved rapidly through ring system and beyond, which did not surprise me, began to feel warm. More so as I went until it became almost too uncomfortable and was at the point of turning back, when I rammed headlong into something and collapsed. Shaken, I reached out, and there was a barrier, smooth in texture, rigid and penetrable. Still very uncomfortable from the heat, I pulled myself together, knowing this was the end of the line. I might as well turn back to the physical body. And a bright light, very intense, glowed in front of me. First ovate, reshaping into a tall humanoid form. So bright, I cringed from it. For what seemed an eternity, I shrank back, trying to shield myself from the brightness. Then I began to cool down until I was no longer uncomfortable, and I could tolerate the brightness. "Is that better for you?" the voice said. Better was an understatement. Much longer and I would have melted. "Did you bump your head?" the voice said. "Well, I guess I could call it that. Usually my head was out front when... It is nothing to be concerned about. You have a hard head, Mr. Monroe." That turned me around. I never thought of God having a whimsical sense of humor. That and the Mr. Monroe routine. I straightened, no longer cowering. Almost felt like reaching out and shaking hands and greeting. Then the voice says, "There are more significant and suitable ways." I started getting bewildered. I was just floating there, trying to figure out what happened. The voice says, "You encountered a condition similar to which your scientists call a standing wave, where 2 like energies in phase appear to cancel one another to zero. Yet there is no zero, as energy does not cancel. It transforms into other dynamic states." Okay, so now I supposedly knew what happened, but that didn't explain where I was. If I asked... "Where," the voice said, "is a relative term. The most reasonable explanation from your perspective is that you are just outside the portal, the gate to our reality, a conversion point. The ident you used brought you here." Well, there are gates to heaven after all. I guess they could be construed as golden and or pearly if you thought heaven was beyond. The voice continued to answer, "You are correct in your assumption. It is all from within the observer." The percept finally came out. The communication was so natural and so rapid that I had missed it completely. There I was, casually communicating with this wonderfully glowing being, just as I would a new friend, or he or it was answering my questions before I asked them. So I must be using nonverbal communication, or NVC, better than I realized. No point in holding back any part of me, even if I wanted to. Whatever I was, it was reading every thought I had anyway. I opened wide all of what I was. So he's opening up his consciousness to this thing, like, here, take it all, you know. And it says this, "That is not necessary, Mr. Monroe." And I immediately knew why. It, or they, had been a part of the process. My concept of an external intelligent energy source helping, navigating, doing the driving was accurate. The voice says, "With your present need for individuation, yes." The question arose in me automatically. Well, how long has this been going on? I had become aware of it only recently and had traced it back to the beginning of my out-of-body experience activity. But how about before then? Have you always been... And the voice says, "You will become aware of such reality at an appropriate point." All I could be sure of was my own direct experience, but they must communicate with other people. Then the voice says, "With very many by different methods, very few as we are functioning at this point." I knew that that was the best I would get, but I wondered about it. And then it answers. See, it's answering his questions before he can finish his sentences, And then it goes on and says, we are many, and you have known many of us. Okay, so they would be correct. I hope they didn't mind the inspects label. Now it seemed inadequate. Well, it will serve nicely at this point as well as any other. Well, I wonder if they were the same as those we had met in the lab with those various explorers. The voice said, well, in some instances, but not all. So many questions, and now was my big opportunity. And the voice said, there will be others. The first question, what should be the first? Are they God or... Then the voice says, we are created and we create, just as you. If God and Creator are identical, then you are God to which you create. Well, I couldn't help the next one, even if it killed me. I had to know. Did they... And the voice said, it will not kill, as you put it, nor will it harm you. You are prepared for an answer by your very presence here, your curiosity, as you call it. The essence that is you and others in the human process was not our creation. As you exist before time, space, human earth pattern, just as you do at this point. The inhuman experience is merely an addition to what you are. However, it is an important addition. I tried to sort out what was so important in being human that it would... And the voice says, how do you state it? A drop of water in an ocean cannot understand the seas or the waves that cast it upon a sandy beach? Now, wait a minute. That came out very human. Maybe they are only superhuman, graduates after all. The voice said this, well, some of us have passed through the inhuman. I was selected because I am one of those few. Few? I wonder how many are few? 5, 10, 1,000? Voice responded, it is difficult to assess due to the melding, more than the current in-physical human population, and perhaps 100 times as many. Well, that would imply they have been involved since the very beginning of human life. And the voice said, that is correct. Before that, we are just as you. Okay, well, and if 700 billion are just a few, then that must mean the total of them must be big numbers. The voice responds, we do not count the parts of the whole. It is not necessary. All right, well, if there are many parts of the whole, then there must be other important ways to learn, other non-Earth human systems. The voice responded, no other precisely as you have found in human physical Earth. There are many other consciousness growth centers, or schools, as you call them, throughout what you know as the physical universe. Oh, I could bet that they participate in all of them. They would have to if... That's a very safe bet, Mr. Monroe. Well, this was becoming an event not like anything what I expected. I was rapidly losing my sense of awe. It was replaced with a great feeling of warmth, of understanding, much on the order of old, deep friendships, yet filled with intense respect. Not the usual pattern of expected angels, if that's what they were. Then the voice says, we can quickly grow some wings if you wish. No, please, no wings. Robert said, no halos either, although I got the clear percept, staring at my inspect. Friend? Yeah, at least for now, the voice said. I could understand how humans with limited but definite momentary superconscious vision could add a halo to make the human-formed inspect stand out as different. A bright, radiant form? Maybe. How often in human history has such perception taken place? Miracle workers, saints, local medicine men, and last-timers on their final run, no doubt. Then the voice said, no doubt at all. I wanted to be very careful about this, that I had at least a faint comprehension, that I got it as specifically and accurately as I possibly could. They, or the inspects, were in existence before humans ever came into being, several million years ago at the minimum. The voice says, by your time measurement, that is correct. As were you and all other energies that are now or have been inhuman, if you use this perspective. Well, could that infer we as humans, the non-physical energy part of us, actually are inspects and we don't know it? Then the voice says, as we understand it, you are created by the same source. But we humans are not the same. Then the voice says, and I'm just saying voice, but it's a communication. It is difficult to express in your terms. Consider the structure of physical matter as various forms. moving inward. You have named subconstructs as atoms. These, in turn, have many organizations of particles that result in distinctive patterns. Your scientists have begun to understand the energy relationship of these particles. They have begun to perceive the spinning of the particle itself. It is the creative force that produces such spinning which we have in common. Well, that which could mean vast differences if I work outward to the structure from that base. Differences is so profound that there could be no point of reconciliation, even similarity. Then the voice said, well, you are presuming a complexity which in our reality is very direct and simple. It is the distortion of time-space illusion that causes this in your consciousness. Well, I'd have to try again. There must be some ongoing relationship between such inspecs and humans. Else, why would they even bother with us? And for some reason, they need us, and we need them. They have been involved with human existence since we began. I'm drawing a blank. And the voice said, all of your percepts are correct within certain limits. I began to receive discomforting signals to take care of something back there. Back where? Where? The signal, annoying, persisted, and I tried to ignore it. What I was doing was much too important to be interrupted. I wanted to concentrate on my next thought question, but the signal got in the way. I turned to dismiss it and realized it was a need to return to my physical body. Of course, my physical body. Oh shit, I forgot. I had to go back, but I didn't want to. The chance might never come again. Then the voice said, we can meet often at this point. We understand your need. A stronger ident homing signal will be provided that you can do so. The radiation was warm, understanding friendship and much more, and I gratefully responded and reached for the ident of my physical body and stretched. The feeling movement back seemed short, and I automatically slipped into the second, then into the physical. By habit, I looked at the clock, 2:23 a.m. I was only gone for 6 minutes. By comparison, the problem that called me back was frustratingly minuscule. My thoughts were filled with dazzling import of those 6 minutes as I got out of bed and went to the bathroom to empty my bladder. I slept very little, if at all, the rest of the night. And during the next several weeks, the press of daily physical activity plus the eagerness and excitement in my anticipation kept me from another meeting. I had difficulty in getting into the required pre-sleep. However carefully I approached the out-of-body release point after I did get relaxed, I couldn't get into the out-of-body state. After repeated effort, I did no more than just fall asleep, and I realized I was forcing it too much, but it was hard to control. Finally, I gave up trying for the moment, and it happened easily. Time, 4:45 a.m. All right, I got to run to the restroom. I'm sitting here jumping up and down in my seat like, just a quick break, and we'll be right back. Thanks, Brad. Brad said, you're an excellent narrator. Thank you for all your hard work. I'm trying, man. It's hard to, I appreciate that. It's hard to convey this book because there's so much weird shit going on. But, all right, I'll be right back, guys. I just got to run. See on the outer rings, I guess that's explaining all this stuff to him. You guys got any thoughts? Negative?
No, man. These higher beings, they said they were created and that they create and we created and that we create. So the suggestion is there is a creator based on whatever it is they were saying, you know?
Like a God, like a one God creator, you think?
Yeah, but they didn't go into it, but they kind of suggested that, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's all I got from it, really.
Yeah, and also that there are these rings that he's talking about. These what did he call them? Recycling rings. So the deeper you get into these rings, the deeper you're into this recycling process.
Wasn't it seven rings, 49 rings?
Oh yeah, that was
large ring.
That was the other
yesterday,
explorer saying that the circles, right?
Yeah.
That's weird. You know, I don't know if you've ever, just a side note, I remember reading something that Carl Jung wrote about he slipped into an OBE state or an out-of-body state one time and started getting, like he was in this kind of recycling ocean that went to the moon and back to the earth, and he was just kind of stuck in it. Anyways, that's what it made me think about when that being was talking about that stuff. All right. I think he's gonna go meet this being again. So that's if you believe Robert Monroe's telling the truth and all this stuff is real. It seems real, and if it's not, it's one hell of a story, isn't it? Dan Beard said, "This is out there, man. What a trip." Yeah, it's definitely out there. All right, so he's struggling ever since he talked to this being. He can't get back into the out of body state, and then he realizes he's trying to force it too much, and so he finally gave up trying for the moment, and it happened easily. Time, that's usually when everything manifests, when you give up on it. Totally give up on it. Time, 4:45 a.m. Awake and rested, although for far past my usual cycle. I went into the unhook rollout and moved easily into the second body state. Moving out of the second was easy, and I reached for an ident to home into. It was there, and I held back my excitement. Stayed calm, reached and stretched. And following the signal, the feeling of movement was short and quick, and I stopped. And before me was the shining form. Several others were behind it. Trying to remain calm and casual, I focused on the radiation that had been so distressing before. Now it was very tolerable, or I was getting used to it. "A little of both, Mr. Monroe. We did modify it somewhat for you," the voice said. Well, I had gone over many times how I would resume our communication, the questions I would ask, the order of priority in case the pattern was going to be broken off again suddenly. And the first question, the voice said, "Your interest lay in our relationship with those in human experience prior to your departure to go into the bathroom." What an incongruity. Well, this time I made absolutely sure it wouldn't happen. No coffee, very little liquids. "Cause and effect," the voice said, "in which you place such great belief." Belief relief. That's a good one. I'll have to remember it. But the other one's behind, my friend. I don't remember there. And the voice said, "Well, as you have noted, there are others of us also here at this point. They have been present throughout our meeting. It is your ability to perceive that has changed. They are, how do you call it? Interested or curious is a better definition, which you understand very well. Well, I'm sure I'll need all the help I can get. Here I am, consulting with a being or beings whose penetration into human life activity has been interpreted to be God or gods or angels or even the devil." And the voice said, "That was not our intent. Certain adjustments had to be made." Well, now it's UFOs and flying saucers, which is more in keeping with current cultural concepts. And then the voice said, "You would have lost that bet, Mr. Monroe. Such are manifestations of another pattern, of which you will soon become aware." Well, I'd better let that one stay where it is and stick to the main point. Why adjustments, whatever that means? Then the voice says, "Well, because free will is such a vital part of the human learning experience, deviations from the design are frequent and predicted, as you would express it. Such adjustments are no more than, the exact term is not there, fine-tuning. Yeah, fine-tuning. I got a percept of an immense machine, and infinitely complex and complicated, with inspects climbing all over it, in and out of it, turning a knob here, a valve there, taking off a filter and cleaning it, watching waveforms on a oscilloscope, checking materials inputs, flow. Flow, that's it. Their concern was the flow of energy through the human experience. The idea of a machine wiped away completely, and there was the physical earth with the human energy rings encircling it, dreamlike in its quality. The voice said, your last percept indicates good progress. Well, but if they created the process in the first place, they should have been aware that it would need maintenance or modification. And the voice says, well, we did not create time-space as you know it, nor the physical earth, nor the human process, nor the energy flow itself. That is not our department, as you put it. Our concern is the output and the quality of such, and to this end we adjust the internal flow as needed. Well, I'd have to let that one pass by too. Try to keep away from any deviation. And the voice says, you will learn of the basic or original design. The greatest virtues, patience. Then the voice said, you are intended to walk before you fly, as you put it. Those who fly must reach back and remember they have already learned to walk. This was necessary for you. Now came the first of the high, hard ones. All right, well, why me? Why did I learn to fly first? The voice says, well, you had the latent capability to perform an important function of a very minor nature at this point in the development of human consciousness. Well, what possible capability could that be? What function? It must be so minor I can't perceive it. And the voice said, you need but examine yourself, as you and only you know what you are. As to function, you are performing it very well, as expected. Well, with a little help now and then, I hope, whatever the function is, can't pull it all together instantly, have to sort it out, even to the beginning of my flying. Did they help on that one? The voice said, well, you were given some assistance. One facet of your capability was the actual instigator. It should be obvious to you. It directs your actions so frequently you have become conscious of it. The percept flared instantly. I always felt the trait was of dubious quality. It always created more problems than solutions. Curiosity. Curiosity, that's why they say curiosity killed the cat, I guess. Then the voice said, that is correct. And the old saying, curiosity killed the cat? A different species. It may kill cats on occasion, but you're alive in many forms, Mr. Monroe. Now, if I could just get a percept of this function business, I might be able to perform more efficiently. And then the voice said, we will attempt to bring you into an awareness of the totality of which your function is but a part in other meetings. Until that is accomplished, you are unable to obtain a clear percept, or any rote you receive will distort the function you are performing. Well, I held on to the promise of that statement, feeling very humble and inadequate, and astounded that I remained as calm as I had in the face of the encounter that was taking place. The effrontery of my probing, the extent of my ignorance, their radiant response to these flickers of thought was so profound that I nearly broke down and lost control. No patronizing, no compassion, no feeling of superiority, but beyond friendship, beyond brotherhood, beyond father, mother, parent, beyond endearment, beyond words. If they had told me they were God creator, I would have settled for that. But we are not, Mr. Monroe, the voice said. Well, they even knew how to pull me together. The Mr. Monroe stuff. If I had been physical, I would have laughed uproariously in relief. Or, thank you, I needed that. We have another name for you. We can use it if you wish. I was happy to leave it the way it was for the moment. There was nothing formal or reserved the way they used their ident for me, but I wonder how it started. Then the voice said, one of us began to use it in a meeting in your work area. Yes, or laboratory. And thereafter we applied this ident to you among all of us. I knew instantly which one, and it came as no surprise. I wish they would give him my greetings. Well, we have done so, the voice said. But the problem, the basic question still remains unanswered. If I don't know where I'm going, or what I'm supposed to do, I might go in the wrong direction again. I know I already have done this several times. Then the voice responded, we will help you become much more aware very soon in terms of your time. There is a facet of your particular process that must be accomplished first. It is all coming together rapidly. The time, as you put it, is growing short. And with that perspective of time, that could mean 1,000,000 years. By that time, I'll be long gone, and maybe humans too. Then the voice said, we refer to the span within your present physical life, so that your awareness can be accelerated. We recommend that you use only the ident homing signal, as you describe it, that we provide. If it's not there, you may draw the inference that you need to focus on your physical manifestation until the point that is present. Well, in other words, if it comes, playtime is over. Now back to work. Then the voice said, there are certain patterns you must undergo before you proceed. We will begin with you through them, or we will be with you through them, but not in your physical consciousness. We have prepared an exercise for you that may help you through such experiences. Do you wish to use it? I had a percept of the kind of exercise, but it's not content, and I knew that it would be rough. If they say it will help, of course, I wish it. And the voice said, turn inward and close tightly. Click. I'm flying a single-engine Navy. Now he's in one of their simulations. I'm flying a single-engine Navion over a large city. Bill is in the seat beside me. We're about 2,000 feet up, and we're just below the overcast. Turbulence is minor. Gauges look good. It's a borrowed aircraft. I need to keep an appointment in the city below. Bill leans and yells in my ear, "You're going to have to land now if you want to be on time." I look around. I don't see the airport. "Never mind the airport," Bill points downward. "You have to land now, down there." I nod. Nose the Navion down, throttle back, low pitch, gear down, 3 in the green, gentle spiral. Try to decide where to set it down. The street's full of cars. There's a wide, flat roof. I turn to look at Bill for approval, but he's gone. Gone. I look back quickly. I'm below 1,000, airspeed 70, 500 down. Have to decide fast. Opt for the roof, or at least if I get it stopped, I won't kill anybody else while in the street. So I line up the roof, full flaps, nose over steeply. Drop her in right on the edge of the roof. Stall warning, yelling its heads off. Chop throttle, switches off. Let her drop out. Drop out. She's down, brakes, stand on them. Other edge coming up fast, now slow. She's going to make it. She's down, and stopped. I sigh and stop shaking. It's hot, and I open the canopy and climb down to the roof. I stand there looking at the Navion. It's all in one piece, not a scratch. All I have to do is find the stairway down, and I'll be on time for my appointment. But how will I get the Navion back to its owner? It will never be able to take off a 200-foot roof. I have to remove the wings, lower it to the street by a crane. What a stupid decision. Why did I have to click, reset, click? The street or the roof? The street. Cars will see me coming in a clear path down the middle, full flaps. Nose down. Watch the taller building. That's it, right over the street, straight down the middle. Watch for turbulence. Crosswinds at the corner. Flare out. Hold her off. Get out of the way, get out of the way. Can't you see me? Stall warning, yelling. She's quitting on me. Too quick. Flash of light. Heat. A terrible heat. Sounds like he just crashed a plane. Click. Reset. Click. I'm flying a single-engine Navion over a large city. Bill is in the seat beside me. We're about 2,000 feet up, and we're just below the overcast. Turbulence is minor. Gauges look good. It's a borrowed aircraft. I need to keep an appointment in the city below. Bill leans and yells in my ear, "You're going to have to land now if you want me to be on time." They need to make a movie out of this, don't they? I look around. I don't see the airport. "Never mind the airport, Bill points downward. You have to land down there, now." "Not this kid," I yell back. "The appointment will have to wait. If it costs me the deal, so be it. Now where's the airport?" Click. Reset. Click. It's a borrowed aircraft. I need to get an appointment in the city. I need to get to an appointment in the city below. Bill leans and yells in my ear, "You're going to have to land now if you want to be on time." I look around. I don't see the airport. "Never mind the airport," Bill points downward. "You have to land now, down there." I laugh, swing the yoke over in front of Bill, clip the parachute harness across my chest. Then I unsnap my seatbelt, open the canopy. "You fly it home," I yell as I jump far enough to clear the tail assembly, pull the D-ring, feel the jerk of the chute opening, and start to float down. Click. Reset. Click. Thanks for the offer of a loan of your Navion, but that's playing it too tight. Couldn't possibly make it on time, so I called and put off the appointment. Click. The haze was very thick and Bill was beside me. He was rolling lightly. "It took you long enough." I blanked and rolled with him. "You certainly weren't any help." He smoothed. "Use it in good health." I spun a little. I got the assignment. You better go back now. You have many things to put together." I plied. "I guess so. See ya." I turned, dove inward, ident physical body, in other words, he's going back towards his physical body, and re-entered without incident. I sat up in bed, then got up, put on a bathrobe, and went out on the deck. It was a clear night, quiet and warm. I was still unsure as to how or why it happened, but I had no doubt as to the reality of the experience. If I encountered it and knew it, How many more thousands of human beings living right at the time point on Earth also have gone through the same or similar pattern? If they have, to whom would they tell it? And the other training centers on planets circling those billions of stars tied to us by an intelligent energy field common to all of us, were they as unaware as we? I felt very small, looking at the stars and beyond, but not alone, never alone. Shit, that's weird. Did anybody in this room or in the chat perceive what the hell just happened? That's weird. Wolf, did you perceive any of that, what just happened?
I mean, it kind of just sounds like a lucid dream. If it's a test, what's it for and why? I mean,
it sounds to me like, yeah, like when he talked to the entity and he's like, well, they were like, you got to go through this conscious training thing or whatever. And he's like, I guess I got to trust him. And then they put him in the simulation of him like borrowing a plane and flying it to an appointment. And every time he made a decision, he'd have to start over until I guess he finally got to the place where the guy offered for him to borrow the plane. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. That's cutting it too close. What the hell does that mean?
No idea. I mean, he never sort of says the point of it, does he? Or he doesn't seem to ask the point of it. You know, a sort of rational psychologist would say that was just a very, very lucid dream, maybe, you know?
Of course they would say that.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know what the lesson in that is.
I think, do you ever get like an intuition that you're about to make the wrong decision? Like you come up to a place in your life and you're about to make a decision and there's like this knowing that you shouldn't do it. Almost like you've been there before.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they were teaching him. Like, think about it. Maybe they were showing him that all of kind of like what Thomas Campbell talks about. Like, so all of the disappointment that you needed to make and this friend that was going to loan you his plane, there's so many different things that could happen. Right. But you've made all those decisions already in the game. It's like quantum entanglement. It's just of which decision you choose, which one is the right one. And it stopped him on the last one where the guy offered him the Navion and he was like, nah, man, that's cutting it too close and that's kind of too dangerous. But the 4 episodes before, he was flying the son of a bitch, crashing it, landing on a roof, and even jumped out of it one time in a parachute, you know. If that's a lucid dream, that's a pretty damn extensive, like, I've never had a lucid dream that thorough or that detailed. Not personally.
People have those dreams where they wake up within the dream and they think they're awake and they're not awake. And then something else happens, you know.
That's a false awakening. I've had those.
Yeah.
But not where I could make a different, like not where I can make different decisions. Like you remember that time I was telling you I woke up and I was clicking on the phone and my phone screen would do that weird flick thing. And then it felt like I was awake, but then I realized I wasn't. And I'd try to wake myself up again. And I'd wake up, rolled over, looked at my phone screen, pushed it and clicked it. Same thing. I did it like 3 or 4 times before I actually woke up. And that 4th time when I woke up, there was this thing like standing over my head, dude, looking at me. I saw the top of its head. You remember me telling you that story?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
what was looking at you? Some kind of hooded creature, was it?
I don't know, man. Like I'm not saying that's the same thing that happened to Monroe right here. Whatever happened to him was some kind of reality simulation these beings put him in for some kind of conscious learning experience. I don't know, but
you mean you could argue that that's what life is anyway, couldn't you?
Yeah. But what happened to me was I had my phone. I was on the couch trying to get out of body, but I'm pretty sure I fell asleep. And I woke up, and right when I woke up, I would always grab my phone, and I looked at it, and I would touch the screen. I touched the screen, and the screen would just turn black. So it just turned black, you know. And I'm like, damn, it would do this weird kind of phasing thing when I touched it. Like almost like you'd see like the plasma when you touched it, but it wouldn't come on. And there was something about that made me realize that I wasn't awake. And so what I did was I tried to wake myself up. Like I could literally feel my eyes shaking, trying to wake up. You know, like when you realize you're in a dream and you're like, fuck, you know, just wake up, you know, and your eyes are shaking, kind of.
Yeah.
And then I woke up, rolled over, grabbed my phone, tapped the screen, and it did the same thing, right? Plasma, it's not working. I'm still not awake. So I'm still like shaking my eyes again, trying to wake up. I did that 3 or 4 times, okay? The 4th time, I realized I started getting scared. I was like, I'm trapped. I'm freaking trapped in this cycle. Like I may never wake up, kind of like in waking life or whatever. And for some reason, I'm laying on the couch and I just stretch my head up. You know how like you can just kind of stretch your head up, stretch your neck out and look up. Mm-hmm. And I see this hood like over my face and the wrinkles on the forehead, and it was white and the eyes were kind of dark. And dude, when I saw that, it freaked me out so bad. I just jerked my head over real quick. I was like, holy shit, what the hell is that? Like, and my heart started speeding up. And I did this thing that I learned in the occult. Like I vibrated the words Yeshua like a couple of times, and then it moved away from me. When it moved, I didn't get a good look at it because I was freaking out. You know, I just didn't want to look at it. When it moved away from me, I felt it move by me. Like if you were sitting, you know how you could sit in the shallow end of a pool and something goes by you and you can kind of feel it in a swimming pool?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
Damn.
And then I woke up. I woke up for real after that. You know, rolled over, looked at my phone, the damn screen came on. So that's not the same thing that Monroe was going through, but he was going through a conscious shift. Like that's a false awakening, right? I think what Monroe was going through was something that these entities put him in, like some kind of conscious field test, or showing him how reality works, like because time doesn't exist where they do, or it's all bullshit. One of the two.
Well, he was on about a machine, wasn't he? An energy machine, a bit earlier on, that they created.
Yeah, he said that he said that he had a vision of a machine. It was like this idea based on what they were telling him, some kind of flow machine or something.
Yeah.
But I think it came to something different. I don't know, man. You guys know, like, this is why I listen to this book on Audible once a year, at least, to try to figure out what the hell is going on, you know. And the rest of this book, he doesn't sit here and talk to this entity for the rest of the book. Like, he starts going places. So the next chapter is called Rainbow Route, Newfound Friend, Rescue Mission. He starts like, it's almost like that movie Inception, but these are out-of-body experiences and timelines and different realities and shit. The real question is is this real? And what I do know, like if you're thinking that, if you're skeptical of like, is any of this real? What I do know is for a fact, is that the out-of-body experience where you can peel yourself out of body, like your etheric, I don't know, body or whatever, and get down, like just move away from your body like the way I did, that shit's real. It's not a dream. It's not a lucid dream. Everything looks as real as it looks now. It's just a little different. That's all. You can watch yourself sleep. You can go into your yard. Hell, you can go in your neighbor's yard. You can fly around. That is real. It's not a dream. It's not a lucid dream. I promise to you, with everything in my being, soul, I'll promise on anything you want me to put my hands on. This stuff that Robert Monroe's going through is supposedly the next stages after that stuff. And William Buellman has experiences like this and some like this in his book. Is it real? Well, it either isn't, and all these people are lying, or I just don't see how it could just be a dream. There's no way. because they've already went through the first phase. Unless there's a way they can slip back into a dream from there, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like that. It's too damn detailed, Wolf. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this other locale, maybe it's just the way you perceive it and when you're there. But it's interesting what you said, because I was thinking that as well. Can you just slip into another lucid dream from locale 1? But it's all subjective, so unless it happens to us, we're never going to really know.
That's exactly right. That's why we got to get out of body more, man. Halloween's coming up. It's the perfect time. We should be all trying to get OBE. I know if you're out there, Grant gets out. Anyways, we're going to roll out of here. When I might come on tomorrow night and do a couple more chapters. I don't know. I think we've done 3 this week plus Mary's show. So thank you guys for hanging out and all of the people that listen after the fact. But these books, like if they're bothering you at this point, it's just going to get weirder. But if you like the weird, then hang in with us. Bryce, you got anything you want to ask, say, or statements before we roll out of here?
No, not really.
Negative. Bryce Roney's all good.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Night night. Sweet dreams. See you on the next broadcast. Damn, there's something I was supposed to say, but I forgot. Forget what the hell it is. Oh well.
Tombstones climbing up the sky to claim the boredom and the whine of the radiator, to freeze the fates that intertwine, unresolved and undefined in this echo chamber.
What a fucking weird. This is so.
Once you've given up the ghost, just like Lazarus, you'll know there's an operator, some strange passenger inside. To that strange power I'm resigned like an iron anchor.